Hi there, it's Nicole for My Favorite Things, and I'm excited to share a scene card that basically is flat except for the Party Like a Pirate images because it was created with a My Favorite Things stencil. This is the Radiating Rays stencil, and I've used it before in other ways. I absolutely love it. Stencils are a great, fairly inexpensive way to create scenes that maybe aren't bulky like a lot of layered accents that might be die cut would be. I'm going to start by stamping my images. 99% of the time I start with that picture there at the beginning of this video where I lay out my components. I've got the stencil, I've got the one die I am using that's got to have the greeting. It's also going to kind of help ground the images for my scene. I have the greeting stamp, and then my images I'm using. It gives me an idea if the components are going to work together, if they're sized proportionally, if everything is going to fit together well. From there, I am stamping the images from the new Party Like a Pirate stamp set on some Nina Smooth White cardstock. Using a black ink for Copic coloring, this is going to allow me to color in these images and the ink is not going to bleed. I like to use a stamp chamois to clean off my images. I've been using it a lot and getting tons of questions about it, so I thought I would mention it here. I'm going to start coloring in my images. I am starting with the skin tones for both of these cute little boys. These images are so much fun. Pirates seem to be all the rage right now. You see them all over, and I really love the size of these images. Plus, they're this darling collection. I just absolutely love these. I think they're super fun, great for building scenes. The colors of Copic markers I'm using to color in everything are shown across the bottom of the screen. The skin tones here for the first little boy are E13, 15, and 27. Make sure and get the arms too. For the second little boy, E00, 11, and 13. To me, with those little freckles on his face, he looks like a redhead, so that's kind of where I was going with this. I'm going to use a little R20 for both of their cheeks, just to pinken them up a little bit. Go back and blend out all of my shading colors. Here's that R20. For the dark hair on the first boy, I'm using C9, 5, and 7. There's not a lot showing there, so very, very little. Same for this little boy, YR21, 15, and 19. And really have to be careful, not a ton of hair showing here, so pretty light, small little strokes. For the bandana on his head, on the second boy's head, I'm using R24, 29, and R46. Lots of red here, different areas on these images. They're really fun to color. And even though there are some small areas, these images aren't so teeny tiny that they are super hard to color, if that makes sense. I know some images are so small that sometimes it can be really hard with, even with those brush tips for Copic markers. These are a little more forgiving in that respect. They're just a nice size. For the wooden pole that the pirate flag is flying from, I'm using E55 and E57. I'm going to use those same two colors for the inside panels on the pirate chest. For the outside, I'm going to be using some darker colors of brown and some gold for the lock, which is just some yellows. Same colors I'll be using for the gold coin piles. I'm going to go ahead and do the first little boy's shirt with striped red and white. Same red colors as before. Also the sash around his waist. For the white stripes, those are going to be created with cool gray markers. Very, very light, just enough to give them some shading and definition, not really to add color. You don't want to leave them stark white, but you really don't want to lose the white color either. So just a little C2 and C00 to blend that out. I used cool grays for the stripes here, but for the vest and the hat, I will be using some warm grays. And it's enough of a contrast or a difference that you can see it, especially in the finished card. The sword itself, as well as the knife, are going to be in shades of cool gray as well. Give it that kind of metal look. The little band around the pirate hat here is going to be R46. Then the rest is going to be colored with those warm grays. And you'll see the difference compared to the cool grays of his hair. I knew I wanted it to be black, and that I'm building up to black with my warm gray markers. But I wanted it to look enough different from his hair that it would show up and stand out. So building up that color, blending with my lightest color over and over until I get it just the way I want it to look. I even went back in with warm gray 9, which is really nice and dark, right around the hairline where the hat meets the head. Trace that just a tiny bit. For the vest, some warm grays again. Darken that up. Kind of like a little leather vest is kind of what I was thinking here. For his pants, I'm going to go with some blue. Kind of pull in all my primary colors here, or the majority of them. B21 is the base color. B24 and B26 are going to be the other two colors I'm using. And I'll go over these a couple times to build up the color. It's always easier to go darker. It's very, very hard to get it lighter. So I tried to just kind of ease my way into darkening up these cute little pants he's wearing. For the boots on both of the boys, those are going to be in those same warm gray shades that I used for the pirate hat and vest. So warm grays. The buckles on the first little boy's boots will be have a little, I think it's Y19. The knife for the second little boy, those cool grays that I used for the first one. Now, around his neck, he's kind of got this strap that I'm going to color with warm gray markers. The buckle's going to be Y19. The boots, those dark warm grays again. I just love watching the images kind of come to life as you color them. For the flag, I am using the warm grays again. I really tried to color everything that was going to be the same colors at the same time, as long as I thought of it. Sometimes you don't always know what color you want something to be until you get to it. You have to kind of start coloring and work your way up. The flag, though, I knew I wanted it to appear to be black with that skull being white in the center. The skull will have a little bit of cool gray applied to it or colored onto it just to make it not so stark white. Plus, some of the warm grays bled into little areas of the white because I went over them so many times trying to get the black just right. So the cool gray 00 was a great way to kind of try to push some of that darker gray marker out of the skull and crossbones. I think that flag is so fun. I really tried to implement the skull image from the Party Like a Pirate stamp set, but I couldn't find a good way to use it, so I'll have to use it on another card. The gold is Y23, Y24, and Y27 with some Wink of Stella clear glitter brush pen over the top to make it glittery, to make it look like gold. The stripes on this little boy's shirt are going to be Y11, 08, and 19. So yellow and orange, and then for the orange, YR04 and YR09. I really tried to keep it primary colors. I knew the background was going to be in shades of yellow, and I wanted something that was going to pop really nicely off of that background. For his pants, I'm going to use some brown shades, E40, 43, and 44. And I really ended up loving his pants. I don't know why. I didn't realize I was going to love this color combination so much, but I really did. I use this color combination for a lot of other things, but not really clothing, and I think it worked really well. So the boy images are really almost done except for the hilts of the knives. So little Y23 and YR24 and 27 as needed. Give them kind of that goldish look. And that is going to finish up both of the boy images. I've got the outline left on the treasure chest and the parrot. So here is Y23 and 24 for the gold lock and the rivets on the chest. E47 and E49 are going to be some darker brown colors. I didn't really want to go with black, so I went with brown instead to kind of go around the edges of this chest. So a nice deep dark brown. In fact, some of the brown got into one of those rivets. I just took a colorless blender, pushed the ink on there to kind of push the ink out of there, and went back over it with the Y23 marker. The parrot is going to be a lot of primary colors. So R24 is going to be my base color for the red. R46 will be my blending color. Go back with my lighter color and blend that out just a little bit. YG 21 and 17 for the green, B24 for the blue areas, just kind of on the tips of the wings and around the neck. YR04 for the feet and the tip of the beak. And then I'll blend the rest of the beak with some yellows. So Y08 and Y11. And work that in until I get the beak exactly the way I want it to look. And a little, just some cool grays for the eye, a little C2 and C00. For the background, my original idea did not work. So instead of starting with another piece of paper, I'm just going to blend this all with the Fossilized Amber Distress Oxide ink. Go ahead and put my stencil in place. And I'm going back with the same color on top of color, but I'm just pouncing it on a little deeper and darker. Same Fossilized Amber, pouncing it through that stencil, concentrating more ink towards the center, and that looks great. I'm going to spritz this with water from a distress sprayer. You can get great tone-on-tone results with the same color by doing this. Now those water droplets are going to oxidize, and I'm going to heat this up to speed up the process a little bit, and you can see those great little oxidized circles all over the background. Add some awesome distressing. I've die cut the Party Like a Pirate images with the coordinating dies. Just love these. I think they are so cute. I'm going to build up my little scene. Now what I wish I would have done is cut the banner first so I knew exactly where to line them up, because I think they kind of go up to the right a little bit. I had to peel up the second little boy and the parrot and the gold to reposition them after I went to apply or adhere my banner, that greeting strip. So I probably should have put a straight line or a ruler down first. A little black glaze pen was used for details on the images. Those birds from the Party Like a Pirate stamp set were stamped on the background. Along the bottom edge, I'm going to apply some vintage photo. And what is so awesome, this was totally an accident, you can see it's picking up some of those water droplet areas from the paper and creating some awesome distressing. I am not going to have to go back in and add anything. Now it's totally okay that this looks messy, because this banner, this is a stitched fishtail sentiment strips banner from My Favorite Things, is going to cover that up. I just need a little bit of color down there at the bottom. It's going to help ground the whole thing. This banner was die cut from black cardstock. I'm going to take a greeting from Party Like a Pirate, stamp that with some Versamark ink. Going to get it centered. I'm using the Misty so I can get it centered exactly. Here's the Versamark ink. I'll stamp that and emboss this with white embossing powder, which really stands out nice against the black background. And I think it'll look nice with this image. I didn't want to really pull in too many more colors. There is a lot of color going on in the top portion of this card. Tap off any excess there from the white embossing powder, and then I'll simply heat set this. And to give it a tiny bit of dimension, once this is heat set, and I'm still trying to remove some little flakes of white embossing powder, an anti-cling tool like this powder tool works great. For the dimension, I'm going to put some foam tape on the back of the banner. And I decided this is an A2 sized panel, and I want it to be a little bit smaller so there's a nice white border all the way around this. So I'm trimming off 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch from the two sides, and then 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. And then I will pop my greeting right in place. Now I want to line it up perfectly, and so I'm just going to use my grid background to do that, and it kept shifting on me. So I'm going to grab some Post-it tape, hold that down, and I can line it up with the grid lines on the grid paper I'm using and adhere it perfectly right there. Finally, I'm going to take this panel, attach it to a white top fold card base with some nice sturdy adhesive, and this Party Like a Pirate card featuring a background created from a stencil and some Distress Oxide inks is all finished. Thanks for joining me today for this card featuring My Favorite Things stamps, dies, and stencil. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring My Favorite Things that you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.